This is going to be part 2 in my series of how to make custom motion backgrounds inside of After Effects. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll link that up right here in the top of this video. You can check that out. That was a really cool gradient morphing motion background. But for this one, this is what we're going to be creating 100% from scratch inside of After Effects with only a few free plugins. There's also a bunch of free stuff down in the description. Click the link and you can download a project file from this video, a bunch of motion backgrounds completely for free that I've created from this tutorial right here. So hope you guys enjoy. Let's get started. To start off, I'm just going to make a new composition, call it Void, leave it at 4K, 30 frames a second, about 30 seconds is usually good for motion backgrounds, and hit OK. Then we're going to make a new solid. This first one is going to be white, and that's going to be our background. And then we're going to make a new solid, and this one is going to be black. That's where our effects are going to go. And so on this black solid, I'm just going to apply turbulent displace. The amount is going to be 1600, and then the size we're going to do like 200, and you can obviously adjust this however much you want. That looks pretty good. And so this effect is actually what's going to animate. So over in the evolution, if we just drag this up, you can see our effect is animating, but obviously that hasn't applied to the composition yet. So I'm just going to start at 0, add a keyframe, and maybe set this one to like 100 to start off so we're not at 0. And then go to about the middle. We'll change this to like 2. And then go to the very end. And then the key in this one is we don't actually have to fade in and out to loop like I did in the first video. We're actually just going to apply the same keyframe at the beginning, at the end. So I'll show you what I mean. If I just copy this keyframe, go to the very end and hit paste. So that means it's basically just going to look the same as it does at the very beginning, at the very end, just like that. And then I'm just going to apply a really slight ease to this one. Same at the beginning and the end, just like that. So at the beginning and the end and in the middle, it's going to kind of stop for a second, but I think that's totally fine. Same at the end. If we just watch that, it kind of stops and then starts moving again, but that's just how it's going to loop. So that looks pretty good. And then the part that's really going to sell this effect is using a blur, and we're basically just going to blur the horizontal axis way more than the vertical, so it's going to create this really cool like streaking lines effect. So we're just going to apply a Gaussian blur. This is just going to be horizontal, and this one I'm going to hold shift in After Effects to adjust it by a lot, and you can see the effect is really coming together there. So I'm actually going to do like 1300 around there, and then you can see if we scroll, that's starting to look really good. And then I'm just going to click on our blur, Command D to duplicate it, set this one to vertical. This could be another really cool idea. It's kind of similar to our gradient. You could run with that, but for this one, I'm going to bring this down to like 50, something like that. So it's going to get these really cool streaks, but the vertical isn't so sharp like it is right here. So it's kind of blurred all around. Maybe I could even go a little less on here, just like that. So that's our effect right now. Now that's pretty cool, but there's a lot more that we can do to make this look a whole lot better. And that is going to be through making a new adjustment layer. And then this is just going to affect everything below it. And I'm going to apply the Quick Chromatic Aberration 3 plugin. That one's completely free. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to go download that. But it's a really, really cool effect. I use this one quite a lot just to get a little extra color, especially in these motion backgrounds. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So it's really just going to apply some chromatic aberration to the edges and in that color. So if I increase the position just a little bit, you can see the edges, we're getting like some red and blue, which is really cool. We can change that to red and green or green and blue, but usually red and blue I think looks the best. So I'll leave it like that, kind of slight. You can even adjust the scale a little bit to really see the effect at the edges. Cool, and you can see like before and after, it just brings it to life a whole lot more. Yeah, it's completely different than just this black and white, which is also cool, but applying that effect just gives us a lot of extra color, especially around these edges with the the red and blue we have going on. The great thing about this effect is how simple it is. There's really not a lot going on, but there's a lot we can do to bring it to life even more. For example, I also have some simple film grains. There's a harsh, light, and medium. You can download those also completely for free in the description. Just enter your email and I'll send those over to you. But for this one, I'm just gonna use the light, drag it on top, just change the blending mode to overlay. And that just gives us a little extra texture, and we can hit T and bring down the opacity just a little bit, maybe around 50. It's pretty good. So you can see before, really clean, and then after we just get a little bit of grain to roughen it up just a little bit. And then something else we can do is add a spherize effect. So I'll do that on our adjustment layer and then bring the radius up. You can see it's kind of starting in the middle, and obviously we don't want it to just be this bulb right in the middle of the frame. So I'll hold shift, bring it up probably like that, almost at the max, but still a pretty cool effect to take this kind of in another direction. It's got kind of a warp going on. Now, obviously we probably want to add some color onto this effect. So I will add a hue saturation and just drag this before our chromatic aberration on our adjustment layer here. And we can change the saturation and the hue and stuff like that, but it's not going to affect anything because it's just white on black before we apply our chromatic aberration. So I'll just reset that, but we can click on the bottom and hit colorize, and that's going to allow us to adjust the hue, and it's actually going to apply a color to our effects here. So we can do like a nice blue. We can adjust the saturation and just add like a really slight color, or lightness if we want to take it down. If you have white lyrics or something like that you want to put over the screens, I definitely suggest doing this, because like this is definitely white here in the middle and on the sides. So you don't want to affect the readability of your lyrics on the screen. So you could take the lightness down and just have it slight in the background, but still some really cool motion going on. And like I said, there's just so much you can do to continue to improve on this effect. So if I do Command D to duplicate our black solid, our effect layer here, maybe on this one, I want to change the blur radius and take it down a lot, maybe increase the vertical. And obviously I can change the blending mode on this one and it'll just give us some slight variation, or we can go over to transform and flip it horizontally. And that'll kind of give it a cool different effect. This one actually turned out really cool. I like these lines over in the side. So bunch of stuff you can do. The more you layer on top and build on each other and just find stuff that works and stuff that doesn't, the better your motion backgrounds are going to turn out. One other effect that I was working on when I was planning for this video was kind of a mirror effect. So what I usually do is just duplicate this composition here, and I'll just call this void ripple, and I'll double click to open that. And then what I want to do is drag back my adjustment layer right here. And by default, this just comes in as a solid. So I'll just toggle my switches and enable the adjustment layer again on this layer. And I want to apply a mirror effect to this. So you can see if I swing that around, it kind of swings in a mirror. So you could actually just do this. If we set it to 90 degrees, it'll kind of mirror itself from the center, but I'm actually going to bring this down to the bottom like that. And then I'll duplicate this one more time, delete our effect from there, and then I'm just going to add a mask about where it was mirrored here on the bottom, like there. And then I'm going to add the ripple effect to this top layer, just like that. So if I bring up the radius, you can see it's kind of adding some ripples down there on the bottom. You can play with these settings and just get whatever result you want. And I'm actually going to look at our mask and feather it a little bit so the edges aren't so harsh. And then again, this is very similar to turbulent displace. We're just going to have to keyframe the ripple phase over here, and maybe take it to like 2 at the very end. So then if we play that, we kind of have this ripple coming in from the bottom on top of a mirror. Just another example of what you can do with this. I definitely encourage you to look through the effects and just apply some, see what looks good and what doesn't look good. That's a lot of what making custom motion backgrounds is just trying effects and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And it's just a whole lot of experimentation, which is really what I love about it. One more tip I'll show you before I end this video is I'll just duplicate this one more time and just call this void color. And then here I'm just going to delete our ripples for now. And another way you can add color to this is apply a fill effect to our background, which is actually the white. So it's kind of interesting how this effect is actually reversed. Like if we hide all this, we're just going to be left with a white solid, and that's it. And then once we layer stuff back on, it's actually kind of coming in inverse. Like you'd think the white is actually the layer that we're working on, but it's actually the black. So if I go back into our adjustment layer and disable our hue saturation, because that's actually like colorizing no matter what color is on the bottom. So I'll disable that for now and go back to our fill at the white solid. Maybe I want to change this to like a teal blue, something like that. And then I'll do the exact same, apply the fill effect to our black solid that has all the effects on it. That is pretty interesting. Those are some bold colors. But if we change it to something a little different, like maybe I go to the same color, but just make it a lot darker like that, that could be really cool. And I'm actually gonna re-enable our hue saturation and just reset it. But I do want to take the lightness down like we were talking about, so it's just not so stark and bright. And so we could actually still overlay lyrics, white lyrics on top of it here. So see what that looks like. That's pretty cool. That's just another option you can use to control the color underneath. You can obviously mix colors. That's actually pretty cool if we mix a little bit of purple in with the blue, and it kind of just glows here around the edges. That's still some black in here from our other layer. But again, you can apply fill to our other layer up here and get a really nice like duotone gradient type effect. Maybe this one needs to be a lot darker. So we could definitely continue to improve and build upon this effect, but I'll leave this tutorial as done. So like I said, there's a bunch of free motion backgrounds that you can download in the description that I made using this video that you can use completely for free, and as well as this project file. So if you want to go in and see how I made these a little more in depth, feel free to do that. But thanks for joining for another video, and I'll see you in the next one.